This is continuing WSB coverage of the Ross Harris trial from WSB Radio, Channel 2 Action News, and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. The Cobb County hot car death that shocked the nation is now being tried. Your host for this hour is WSB's Chris Chandler.
And good evening again. We're here with WSB's Veronica Waters, who was in court today. AJC reporter Christian Boone, ditto. Ross Cavett from Channel 2 Action News, who was also there. And our WSB legal analyst, Ron Carlson, is live on the phone. Ron, let's ask you, what happens now? I assume they had everything ready to go. The statements, the first witnesses, the evidence, and so forth. What happens to all that now in this much of a holding pattern?
Well, that goes on the shelf until the new trial opens up, Chris. And what happens next in terms of deciding where this case goes, in the first instance, the statute leaves it up to the lawyers. It says the lawyers should try to agree on a county for transfer of the case. Then it says if they cannot agree, the judge will step in and select the county and then begins negotiations with the transfer county Superior Court chief judge to move the case.
Christian Boone from the AJC, you're telling me you've heard at least a little bit from the former Mrs. Harris.
I talked to her lawyer, Lawrence Zimmerman. He said that he's been keeping in touch with her throughout the jury selection process, and that she agreed that she didn't think her husband or ex-husband would be able to get a fair trial in Cobb, but was also anxious to get this over with.
If we can veer past today into the future, what's the over-under that she's actually called to the stand?
Extremely well. She'll be called by both sides.
By both sides,
her attorney has said that she will not take the fifth, that she will testify.
That she really will. What happened to some of the things we heard very early on? Her saying, paraphrasing, did you say too much to Ross Harris at the police station? They said she had searched also hot car deaths online. What happened to all that?
That's really one of the big, the defense will say it's a matter of context. Like talking to her friends, last year, they said that Ross was kind of a
Chatterbox.
Exactly. Yeah. And he would, and so that her saying, did you say too much was, what did you get yourself in trouble by opening your big mouth? No, that's context. We don't know. And, when the hot car, when this happened, the governor was pushing an initiative to look in your back. So this was something that was being talked about. So it was not that unusual for parents of a young child to be looking up.
Channel 2 Action News reporter Ross Cavett, which side benefits most from this delay now?
Well, neither side, to be honest with you. In fact, the judge, that was part of Judge Staley's lecture to them when when she came back at 1:30 urging them to get their minds together to prevent this. She said, this isn't good for anybody. However, the prosecution, the DA's office, they usually get to go to another location, and the DA at that county almost always graciously offers office space and room in the very courthouse where the trial is taking place. The defense, on the other hand, they're left to their own devices. I remember in the Lynn Turner case, Jimmy Berry and Vic Reynolds, her defense attorneys at the time, had rented a house, it's on their expense down there in the Perry area. But if you have to give anybody a slight edge, it would be the prosecution, just because they will likely be welcomed to the courthouse with open arms and get their own office space for free.
Chris, I think that's true, but I somehow think Ross Harris is breathing a big sigh of relief tonight.
How so?
That he will not be tried by a Cobb jury. Yeah. Here's one prospective juror's answers to the questions. I can't fathom why anyone would leave a child unaccompanied anywhere, not just in a car, said this juror, adding his belief that Harris's guilt was, quote, etched in my mind real deep, close quote. So the avoidance of jurors like that, or at least the chance of it, has to be heartening to the Harris camp.
Andrew Longoria, our producer, let's cue up the second soundbite. We have been taking your reaction all afternoon long to this. The news came in about 3 o'clock, and Ronnie and I and Ron Carlson kept the air for a couple hours. We took open mics from the WSB radio app. We took phone calls for a long time. And I must say the reaction was pretty heated from both sides. We had just as many people saying, good, he needs a fair trial, is saying this is a waste of money and so forth. Andrew, let's play soundbite number 2. This is a collection of the clips from the open mic we got on the WSB radio app.
I disagree with the change of venue because I think it prevents him from being tried by a jury of his peers.
I agree with the judge today. Taking the court case to Brunswick, I think, is a great idea. With similar demographics, I think not too many people get the coverage down there like they do up here, and I think it's great.
As a resident of Cobb County, I would like the judge to explain how she let 41 jurors get selected and then decided to change the venue. Something smells fishy.
Nobody actually said Brunswick. Let's point that out. That guy was just listing an example there, but that's a sample of the reaction we got this afternoon. And one thing that brought up, and let's point this out, they do have to find a vaguely similar county. They're not just going to go off to Memphis or Jekyll Island for the hell of it.
Right. It will be a jury of his peers. It won't be his neighbors and the folks who, know somebody who works for him necessarily at the Home Depot office in Cobb County. But they will look for a county that has similar demographics to Cobb County so that the jury pool would look a lot like the one that's right here. It just won't be in Metro Atlanta because obviously the news cycle here is the same no matter in what Metro Atlanta County you are. Here's the thing though, whether it's Brunswick or whether it's Waycross or whatever, you have to think about how far and how large their media markets have gotten. Even if we were to go down to Houston County like we did for Lynn Turner, there's no telling now. I've not been down there since then. I don't know how large that media market has gotten.
Maybe the internet.
Everybody's got Twitter.
Well,
everybody's got
it's
Facebook.
Like I said, this moved on the national AP Wire today. I loaded up CNN.com yesterday, wanted to see the latest about President Trump, and there was Ross Harris right on the front page of CNN.com. It was the big national story. Where are they going to go? One of our open mic reactions today was they can move this to Mars and people would have heard about it.
Chris, I mentioned earlier, and this is anecdotal,
Yes.
I gave a program on the Ross Harris case over the lunch hour today. And very interestingly, this was in Athens, I very interestingly talked to some of the crowd members there, one of whom had asked me, partway through my talk, I was getting into some of the nuances of the case, and this professor said, Ron, would you go over the basics of the case? We don't know about it.
Really?
Wow.
I think there's once you get out of the metro area, I think there is a very good opportunity to get a lot of independent jurors. Now, whether a jury in Athens would be far enough away from the broadcast footprint of Atlanta, I don't know. But the folks, once you get maybe 60 to 80 to 100 miles away, they're not as incensed, perhaps, about the case as people in the metro area.
Well, you got to find some county that will take all this in as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
But a lot of these areas are more conservative. A lot of Cobb is a conservative county,
Right.
but socially conservative. Some of these counties, if you're talking Brunswick or
That's true.
you know,
From what I
Columbia
understand.
County.
Sure.
right? I mean, you're going to have the porn thing might look, the sexting charges might look even.
Worse in some place,
Right.
some place that's more
Some-
conservative.
He might be judged more harshly.
Andrew, let's load up a soundbite number 3. These are a few more of the reactions we took in this afternoon on the open mic on the WSB radio app. They came in. We had 30 probably within an hour. People really were in. It's an indication people are really very interested in this. And it does seem, not just in court but outside, that everybody has an opinion on it. Here's a bit more of the reaction we got this afternoon.
I find it so ridiculous that after almost completing their jury pool, that she's going to want to change a venue because of the publicity. I mean, you're not going to find anywhere in Georgia that that it's not been publicized.
We've got to remember that moving the court case outside the Atlanta area will not only decrease the likelihood of flagrant opinions, but will make this a more fair trial.
They could move that trial to Mars and he'd still be found guilty.
That's the fellow I was talking about right there, Channel 2 Action News reporter Ross Cavett. The interesting thing about it is those are all valid points.
I've covered a lot of trials that have been moved out of Atlanta, but never to Mars. So that would be an interesting place to go for one, for sure. Yeah, I remember when we were talking about places to go. If you just look at history in Cobb, we've got Walker County, Houston County, and down in Glenn County. Again, the demographics have to match up. I remember we were looking at places like Augusta that did not match up very well. So I'm sure Tom Sharon, the court administrator here, is already starting to check some of those numbers and facts and figures out. Athens is too close. It's still in the Atlanta media market, and the judge has made it clear that she wants it moved. But the interesting thing, the judge has already commented quite a bit on the media environment that we're in. Times are so much different than when the Lynn Turner and Stacey Humphreys and Fred Tokar's cases were moved out. The way people consume media and how they learn about things is all different now. And, the judge has already made comments in the court like we can't change the way we do business just because people are changing the way that they consume news. And she's well aware of that. And she's going to be really mindful of that as we go through this process.
She mentioned both the AJC and WSB radio today in talking about the press coverage, but she very quickly, just after that, said, the press's job, nobody has done anything out of line.
Yeah,
Chris, there was a comment made by the judge that I'd like to get the reflection of our court people on. She said what we read in the questionnaires sort of did not compare to what we heard in court.
Right.
What was your take on that?
About 1 minute.
Well, I remember one juror in particular who filled out on her jury questionnaire. She said that she had an opinion that Ross Harris was guilty and didn't think she could get past that. But then she came into court and told the attorney she thought she could be fair and impartial during a trial, and that that raises everybody's eyebrows. Are these people being truthful about that? And then I think the overwhelming majority answers on the questionnaire certainly pointed toward Harris's guilt.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that intensified once the one-on-one questioning began, because then you got to actually hear just how passionate people felt about this when they say they kind of have an opinion or whatever, or they've heard of the case. But then in one-on-one questioning, you would hear them say, he needs to go down. That
So
kind of
that's
thing.
what the judge was
Did you ever suspect the opposite? Somebody was trying to get on the jury?
Well, we had some guy who actually said he was.
Yeah, well, that was juror 22, the porn enthusiast.
The infamous juror 22.
Yes, he would have been fun. He was. He talked about his voracious appetite for porn and how that
cheaper than dating. Yeah.
While he was
dating,
still
he said,
single,
right?
yeah. So
I'm sure the defense would like 12 jurors just like that.
No doubt.
Yeah. I think you have a big concern too is when you get these jurors in and they're being, they're sitting down a few feet from the judge and the prosecutor, and they look them in the face and say, "But can't you set aside your opinions and be fair in this courtroom?"
What are you supposed to say?
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of people felt pressure to say, well, yeah, I could be fair and impartial.
And then they would end up in the jury pool.
Channel 2 Action News reporter Ross Cavett, Ron Carlson, Christian Boone, Veronica Waters with us here. Mark Aram coming up at the top of the hour. Our Ross Harris venue change coverage continues through the night. I'm Chris Chandler. Stay with us.